Welcome to the Parenting Roundabout podcast for the week of August 16th. I'm Catherine Haleko, and I'm here with Terry Morrow.
Hello.
And Nicole Eridix.
Hi there.
Every week, we chat about the things parents are talking about, complaining about, and obsessing about right now. This week, we're complaining about repeating ourselves and obsessing about back-to-school preparations. We're also taking a couple of breaks for an entertainment discussion and a recommendation roundup. Today, we're talking about being in college in the pre-internet era, otherwise known as the Stone Age.
Yeah, exactly.
Nicole, tell us what brought us to this place.
Well, my daughter, who was on TikTok, of course, there was a video of somebody who had a course catalog from like the 80s. And for those of you that don't know what a course catalog is, it is literally a book with a list of courses that universities used to put out for their students or potential students. And in the video, the person was going through this course catalog and flipping through and like, oh my gosh, these, there's courses listed in here and it's a book and you actually have to look through it. And so my daughter forwarded me this video and with the question, is this legit? And I'm like, it's as legit as it'll ever get. I mean, it is beyond legit. Because I went through several phases of registering for school. Like, we had a few changes, but initially we did start off with the course catalog where you leaf through it and then you take your notes to the registrar's office at a certain day and time and line up for hours on end. And finally, you made your way into the registrar's office and spoke to a live person, and they actually signed you up for the classes right then and there.
Yeah.
And then you made your way over to the cashier's office and you paid your dues.
With like a
and then you
check.
went to the library and you got or paid your fees or whatever. Then you went to the library and you got the bookstore and got your books. So it was this whole process, right? I mean, it took a full day to register.
Yeah.
And then I remember about year 4 of university, they moved to phone registration. So I don't know if you guys ever had that, but you didn't have to go to the registrar's office anymore. You still had the course catalog. You had to look through the course catalog and pick out your classes. And then you would have to call a number, and then you would have to key in the number of the course that you wanted to register for.
Right, you had to have the touch-tone phone.
Yes, yes.
That's another thing that youths don't understand. The difference between a touch-tone phone and a rotary dial.
And there was no such thing as call waiting, and the line was busy, so you had to keep hitting redial like over and over again until you could get in. And it was so nerve-wracking because, registration opened up at 6 a.m. or something. And I mean, you were on that phone all day hitting redial so that you could get through to somebody to register for your classes. And then, of course, I just started a master's program through university, and it's just all online, as it is with our kids. It's just all there, and you do it instantly, and there's no time taken out of your day. So it was just so funny, and it made me think there's so much that our kids just in this short span, right?
Yeah.
This short time frame that
one generation.
Our kids will never know. They'll never know what that's like. Like, they'll never understand the struggle. Because I feel like it was like way harder. There was a lot more effort you had to put in.
Totally.
It's been so long that I don't really remember the registration stuff, but I super duper remember typing. Remember typing? I had an electric typewriter, and is that one that had the cartridge? You flipped out the ink cartridge and flipped in the correction cartridge back and forth. I got so swift at that. And if you made a, too big of a mistake, you had to go back and type it again.
Yes.
And it's like, you can't even imagine that now. That seems so archaic. That seems like sitting at an inkwell with the candles, illuminating the manuscripts. It seems like ancient history. But man, I was good at typing. I got a lot of pleasure out of that. And it was funny, when we were talking last week, I think it was, about colleges, and I was remembering my College of Creative Study days, and I remembered that I had a paper that I wrote about Doonesbury that I still had tucked in like a Doonesbury book down in my basement. So I found it. And this paper, it's typed, and the typing is all like uneven shading, how it really looks terrible by current word processing, laser printer standards. It looks like somebody typed it on some old-fashioned typewriter, and I had like made copies of different comic strips and taped them with like cellophane tape onto the pages. And they're all, of course, now falling out because the tape is ancient. And I'm like, if I wrote this paper now, it would be so slick looking. I'd just bring, PDFs of the comic strips and I put them in there and it would print out beautifully. But there was just something so, I don't know, authentic about that little typed and stapled paper with the things falling out of it. I was like, this was my college, children. This is my college experience. Just like this. Right? I remember it so fondly. Smith Corona, electric typewriter.
Yeah, the hours spent typing and then retyping if you made a mistake. And
then
my gosh.
You had to finish it at the time. You had to bring it to class with you.
Yes.
You couldn't be like hitting submit on your Google Doc at like 11:59 p.m. or whatever it was.
Exactly.
I had to get it done in time to ride my bicycle to class and turn it in. Physically.
I know.
And similar to that, like if for some reason your professor was going to be unavailable, they were sick or whatever, you would not know until you showed up and there was a note on the door.
Right.
And then you were out of luck because you woke up early for nothing.
I remember when I studied in France, one of the teachers just one day was like, I'm not going to be here for the next several weeks because I'm going to Burundi to visit my boyfriend. So you won't have class. We were like, and in my mind, she was gone for like months. I'm sure it was probably just like 2 or 3 weeks or something, but she just was like, yeah, I'm not going to be here. So like fend for yourself, I guess.
That is so funny. I was just reminded, speaking of papers, I also had this conversation with my daughter about the dot matrix paper with the printer with the paper at the side that you had to tear. So first of all, you had to like insert this ream of paper, and it had to line up with put the holes in the little whatever. Yeah. And then you had to put up with the noise. Zzz, 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 and then you had to tear the sides off. It was such an ordeal. And the paper was so thin.
And it's like the tearing part was like a great advancement because when it first started, you had to just turn it in with like the holes on the sides or cut it off with the scissors. And then they made it so you could tear it off. Oh, look at us. Such innovation.
I know.
Science.
It's funny because even like CDs, and I mean, my kids were younger when we had they had CDs, but they haven't used them obviously in years. Floppy disks. Oh my gosh.
Even like the big ones, not just the little hard plastic ones, but the big ones.
The great big ones.
Yeah. And you would have your operating system on one and then your files on the other. Golly.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It's funny. Our car, one of our cars is, it's probably 15 years old, I want to say. And it still has the doorknobs that you press up and, that you lift up and down. And the windows, you have to wind the windows up and wind the windows down.
It's like a Model T. What are you doing?
My kids, it's like the vintage car. Like it is just so archaic.
Do you have to crank the engine too? Come on.
Yeah, exactly right. And they laugh about that because I'm like, yeah, that's just the way it used to be.
Yeah.
I mean, it didn't. I don't even think it has a CD player in it.
And
it was just like AM, FM radio.
The communication too, like when you're back at school, and I feel like we had a phone in my dorm room. But it definitely was not that far removed from the days of like, there's a payphone in the hall.
Yeah.
And, you know, your parents, if they wanted to reach you, well, they better hope that.
They called the payphone.
They called the payphone and maybe somebody would answer it or, or go get you, you know. And if you wanted to reach a friend, you would have to go physically to their room and like write a note, leave them a note on their door. The whiteboards.
Oh, the phone. I know we were on a floor of like, there was probably 40 of us on the floor, and there were 3 payphones. And the cheapest time to call was on Sunday nights after 7 p.m.
Yep.
And the phones would just be off the hook. And of course, like, we would just end up sitting in the lounge waiting for our turn to get on the phone because they were just, it was crazy. And then of course, your parents would have to phone you and, you know, hopefully somebody would answer it and then they'd yell down the hall, like, oh, the phone's for you. And you're running to get it. Crazy. I mean, talk about an inconvenience, right? Like, could you imagine what your life would be like if you had a cell phone back in that day?
Yeah.
Huge inconvenience.
That would be amazing.
Yeah, and all of those long distance. Well, first of all, the whole concept of calling long distance is no longer a thing.
No.
But, you know, that it used to be like you only called your parents, like you said, on Sunday nights after 7.
That's right.
Maybe it was like after midnight or whatever, a certain time. I know I had one friend whose parents were like night owls, so she would call them, you know, really late at night, and that worked for them. But there was definitely no like, oh, I have a quick question in the middle of the day.
Right.
Like, no. Nope, you don't. Figure it out.
No texting.
I mean,
No.
like, how often did you talk to your parents? Like, maybe once every 3 weeks, 3 weeks? Like, it was...
I talk to them like
maybe
probably once a week, I would say.
It's hard for me to imagine that my mother would have let it go for very long. So if there was possibility of having a phone in a room, we probably had it. Otherwise, I don't know what she did. She made me come home once a week.
She was secretly driving up there and standing outside the window.
Peeking in the window, making sure it was okay.
It's funny to think about. Even, I don't know, I was thinking the other day, like, weddings even. I mean, my gosh, I would, you know, just how different they are and how, like, we got this wedding invitation and, no, actually it wasn't an invitation. It was a save the date. And they were asking for, our help to come up with a hashtag for their wedding.
Yep.
Can you help us come up with a hashtag? It's like, oh my gosh.
You know, I think advances in weddings is a great topic that we need to do a whole episode on. So why don't we bid our long ago ancient primitive college years a fond farewell if it's the right time, if it's late on Sunday and the fees are right, we'll give them a call and say, we remember you fondly. But that's it for today's round 1. Tune in tomorrow for our entertainment-themed round 2 and later in the week to find out what we're complaining about, obsessing about, and recommending right now. We're always interested in what you have to say, so drop us a comment on our website, our Facebook page, or Twitter, where you'll find us at Roundabout Chat.